So in the previous session we set up spawners and we told it to take a class as a parameter. Now the reason for that is that I didn't want to just have one type of enemy. So instead what I'm going to do is in this presentation I'm going to set it up so that we have an alternative knight. So I'm going to go to blueprints and first off I'm going to quickly add some additional functionality to my character. Now at the moment our character has purple hair. And we set this up so that we would have a way to differentiate between characters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make an enemy type that has red hair that throws magic instead of using their melee weapon. So in my construction script for the knight, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the mesh and I'm going to drag off of this and do create dynamic material instance. And what we're going to be doing here is changing their hair color. Now at the moment this mesh has a material that we've set up which will have a parameter for her hair because we already went and sorted that out earlier. So I'm just going to quickly check what the parameter name is. In my situation it's called hair color. So we've got that set up. What I'm going to do is close this down and I'm going to drag off of this and do set vector parameter. I'm going to set this value to be hair color. And I'm going to get this and promote it to a variable that is called hair color. And if I was to go to my viewport and hit compile, I can now see that the hair color of the mesh is equal to whatever the hair color value is right now in the blueprint. So if I change this around, we can now have different versions. So this is what we're going to use to differentiate between our different classes. It's simple, but it's effective. So by default, we're going to have this, which is kind of like let's go with like a lighter green, for instance. There we go, looks kind of elven. So I'm going to hit OK, compile and save. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make one other modification. In my AI controller, which is under blueprints, in my AI controller, at the moment I'm telling them to do a move to function, at which point they'll try a melee. Now what I'm going to do instead is make the acceptance radius I'll make the acceptance radius something that is taken from the pawn itself, and then what I'll do is I'll set, instead of try melee, it'll be use primary attack. So that way the enemies can choose whether they want to throw magic or if they want to try melee. So I'm going to go content browser and I'm quickly just going to set up in my character. There we go. So I'm going to make a new function which is just called use primary attack. And by default, I'm just going to make this feed right through to try melee. So in theory, this functionality for your basic character will be exactly the same as it was. Now the other thing I'm going to set up is a variable that is going to be attack range. And I'm going to set this up as a float. And by default, I'm going to set this to be a value of 50. Compile. Now, last but not least, I'm going to go to my controller base, and I'm just going to set this up. So instead of try melee, it's going to be use primary attack. And over here, before we do the call to AI move to, instead of doing get controlled pawn, I'm now going to drag off of that and do a cast to KG character. I'm going to convert this to a pure cast so I can just get the variable out of it. And finally, I'm going to get the range that we created and plug that into my acceptance radius. And now, for me to make an alternative enemy, all I need to do is right-click on my character base and create a child blueprint class. And this is going to be called KG Character Mage. Now, our mage is going to have red hair. So for me to set that up, I can just go over here to the default properties. I'm going to set her up to have red hair. Should just go like a, yeah, there we go. So I've set her up to have red hair. Her attack range is going to be far greater. I'm going to set it to 400. Compile, save. And in my event graph, all I'm going to do here is in the primary attack. So when we call use primary attack, instead of doing the existing call, which is to melee, I'm going to call magic. So in theory, she'll go ahead and she'll try her magic attack instead when she's at range. And now, the final thing for me to do is, in my game mode, I'm now able to go into any of these waves and set her up as someone that will spawn in the first round. And then I'll make the final round, round 3, a bunch of mages. And I should be able to see her functionality working. So compile. Again, that's going to be me as a base character because I can see it's green. If I hit play, you can see that she's spawned with her red hair, at which point she's doing this. Now, the thing that she's not doing right now is actually aiming her magic attacks, because her acceptance radius, is actually not currently telling her to do that. So all I'm going to do here is over here, before we call primary attack, one last little thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the focal point. So I can actually call this set focal point. And this tells the player who to actually face. So we're just going to say, before you do your attack, no matter what, set the focal point to be your target. And now if I hit play, and I watch, there's my character. So she's spawned, and she's now just immediately throwing fire at me. Whoa. So we now have a functioning mage that we can swap out to make the waves more interesting.